Welcome to the Bowden Blitz SEC edition. I'm Joe Lisi, joined by former National Coach of the Year, Terry Bowden. Coach, week number 14 on the horizon. We got top 25 battles within the SEC, but there were some upsets last Saturday in week number 13, and we'll start in the swamp where Billy Napier and the Florida Gators upset Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart 24-17. Now Florida sitting at 6-5 overall, but more importantly, Ole Miss eliminated from college football playoff contention.
But the SEC it baffles me. The top team, all the Texas A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss, all of them losing football games that they should have won. They have the talent to win those games. But Florida really showed me they have really ignited behind their coach, behind their team. Lagway has been a sensation for them on offense. And it's just amazing that with so much on the line that Florida wins. All these games were won on the road. These are home games for the victors. And I really think that has something to do with it. Playing at home in the SEC late in the season is a big advantage as we saw these three games.
It really has been. And, as good as DJ Lagway was on Saturday, right? Completing 10 of 18 passes, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. I've been very impressed, big picture, in terms of the Florida Gators defense. Let's not forget, the game that they lost in Knoxville, they really shut down Nico and the Tennessee rushing attack for basically 4 quarters. They lost it in overtime. They went toe-to-toe with Carson Beck, and that high-powered Georgia offense limited them, forced turnovers, and they did it yet again, forcing 2 critical interceptions with the game on the line against Jackson Dart. So if you're looking in terms of progression, yes, DJ Lagway is one of the most impressive freshmen that we've seen in the conference. But if Florida is going to be a contender within the SEC, that defense is living up to expectations this year.
Yeah, I really thought Florida was just a quarterback away from being a very good football team. And I want to go back to those 2 interceptions. There is absolutely no way you turn the ball over on first down, the second and down, third down, and give the ball back to the defense. It just really made me think twice about Dart and his ability to take his team above what he should do with its ability to throw the football and get them in trouble. But Florida, let me tell you something. With Lagway, they have a great chance to get right back in the hunt next year.
Yeah, they do. And you talk about third down conversions, Coach, in that game. Ole Miss only converts 3 of 14 third down conversions. They were behind the sticks for much of the game, especially in terms of the second half. I felt like early on, Ole Miss, I don't want to say took Florida for granted, but they were very confident, thinking that they could score at will. And then once the game became a one-score game, and Florida, in fact, took a one-score lead, 24-17. That's where I saw Jackson Dart look, I want to say, a little unraveled, right? The offense didn't look as sharp. They didn't utilize their clock management well over the past 4 minutes. They struggled in terms of the 2-minute drill. That was something that Jackson Dart really excelled in for much of the regular season. Do you put that on Lane Kiffin, or do you just put that more on the Florida Gators for having a defensive scheme stopping Ole Miss's offense?
Well, you know what? To me, Ole Miss kind of reflects their head coach. He's a very confident coach. He thinks he's going to win no matter what. And I got a feeling they kind of feel that way too. And they make mistakes just thinking they're going to win the game. And so, again, great job by Florida's defense. Florida has come through. They've really become the much, much better football team they were at the beginning of the season. But a little bit, Ole Miss just continues to play a little bit too nonchalant. They just play like they're confident they're going to win no matter what. And what happens is they lose some games they should have won.
We'll see what transpires in terms of the Egg Bowl this coming weekend. Another upset took place in Norman. You talk about Oklahoma fighting for bowl contention. They were sitting at 5-5 overall. They opened as a 13.5-point home dog to Jalen Milroe and Alabama. Alabama still looking for a college football playoff berth. All they had to do was win that matchup in Norman. Coach, they only scored 3 points. That Oklahoma defense, with a week of preparation in terms of coming out of the bye week, completely confused Jalen Milroe, throws 3 interceptions, and Oklahoma looked like the ranked team, not the Alabama Crimson Tide.
This game baffled me. It really did. To see Jalen Milroe play so badly. 3 interceptions, not able to run the football. Oklahoma able to run the football. The way they ran it against Alabama, I can't figure out why Alabama was not more prepared to play that. But it was a great game for Oklahoma. They jumped out front. They stayed on top. And they kept Jalen Milroe from being a factor in a football game.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at Kalen DeBoer as well, right? Preseason expectations, they had a 9.5 win total. They were like 14 or 15-1 to win a national championship. Those weren't seen in terms of the Nick Saban days for the past 15 or 16 seasons. When you look at just the overall assessment from Alabama, big picture, we know this isn't acceptable, from year to year to year, but do you give Kalen DeBoer a pass in year number one, or do you feel like he's in the hot seat entering 2025?
No. He's in the hot seat. He's at Alabama. He knows what he was getting into at Alabama. And we knew this could happen. And when he's losing 3 games and they will not make the playoffs. They will not make the college football playoffs. That's going to put him in a hot seat. Yeah, that's what you've got to do. When you take that job, you have to understand what the expectations are. I said before the season began, this season would not be about Milroe. It would be about their head coach. And I think right now they've got to come back and find a way in their offseason to get themselves back in the hunt for a national championship.
Absolutely. And Coach and I will dive into the Iron Bowl a little bit later in the show. But I do want to also bring up, Coach, it's been brought up in multiple discussions throughout the week. Can there be a 3-loss team? Nick Saban has come out and said that the only team that he would obviously say could make the college football playoff with 3 losses would be the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia's already solidified a spot in the SEC championship game. The winner of Texas and Texas A&M will meet the Bulldogs. Do you agree with that if Georgia does in fact lose the SEC championship game, you would still take them as one of the top 12 teams in the nation?
Yeah. That's a tough one right there. Now, there are so many good 2-loss teams, and there's something about a conference football playoff where everybody gets a shot. And I think sometimes you have to say, you know what? I don't know if this conference is better than that conference, but I want to see the top teams with the best records play against each other. It may not determine who the national championship is, but I just don't think I want to get down to 3-loss teams that much when I've got some 2-loss or 1-loss teams that have had a great season.
Do you think that last year, Coach, where we had a 14 playoff and Georgia won 29 or 30 games, they lost the SEC championship game to Alabama and got jumped by the likes of Texas? Do you feel like that'll factor in to the playoff committee's mind at all in terms of if they're an at-large team this year?
Well, you know what? Georgia is one of those teams that I think with 3 losses, they are so good. They play so well, and they have been there before. You have to give them consideration. But I would really look hard now at making sure the playoff teams are teams that were able to win their way into the playoff.
Yeah, and when one of those teams that benefited from all of the upsets, Coach, was the Tennessee Volunteers. If they defeat Vanderbilt this weekend, most likely they're not going to lose in terms of where they are in the college football playoff rankings. Tennessee would solidify themselves as being one of the top 12 teams in the country. You could say it's by default because they haven't had those marquee games down the stretch, but give me your thoughts about Tennessee if they were, in fact, get the victory this weekend over Vanderbilt and make the college football playoff. Do you have a problem with that, a 2-loss Tennessee team making the top 12?
I don't have a problem with that. I really think the fans want to see a little bit of different people in this playoffs. That's what it allows you to do. It allows for teams that you would not expect to be in the playoffs to be in the playoffs. So would I enjoy seeing a Tennessee team? Yes, I would. And some other 2-loss teams as well.
Yeah, Tennessee does open as a 10.5-point road favorite over Diego Pavia and the Commodores this weekend. When Coach and I come back, we'll dive week number 14 in the SEC coming up next.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Back on the Bowden Blitz SEC edition, Coach Bowden and I are going to dive into week number 14. Coach, it's a rivalry renewed. Haven't seen Texas A&M back since 2011, but they'll square off this coming Saturday night in Kyle Field. Texas A&M did open as a 7.5-point home underdog, but the line is down to 5.5 right now on multiple books across the nation. Texas did get the win as an 18.5-point favorite over Kentucky, 31-14. They get the win by 17, but no cover. On the flip side, we saw Texas A&M lose outright to Auburn in multiple overtimes, 43-41. How do you see this game playing out between the Longhorns and Aggies?
I really like the way A&M has played. I know they lost that ball game in 4 overtimes, but Texas has played good offensively and have not gone out there and just dominated people. And I really like the way Texas A&M comes in here. They're on fire. They're ready to win a ball game. It's a big game for them after that tough loss. And so this is going to be a heck of a ball game. I tell you, it's a lot bigger game than people thought. And I tend to think Texas A&M may upset Texas.
Really? Now, see, I lean to the other side. I would lay the 5.5 with Texas, and the reason why I say that is I do have a little bit more confidence in Quinn Ewers than I do Marcel Reed. I watched that game play out where they fell behind 21-0. They did have a fourth quarter lead of 31-28, allowed Peyton Thorne to drive basically 80 yards in about a minute to kick the game-tying field goal, and then they lost it, like you mentioned, in 4 overtimes. Thought the play calling in terms of overtime was a little conservative, but from an offensive perspective, Marcel Reed has been a great addition, but against better competition, South Carolina, and you can even say Auburn on the road, has been a little inconsistent in times. Does that play into this matchup, feeling that the edge would be for Texas because of Reed's inexperience, or do you feel he's benefited by playing at home in Kyle Field?
No, I think he has benefited, but now they'll put pressure on him. They'll want him to force the ball game into his hands, and I think they'll put pressure on him. But he's had an entire season now. He's not a rookie anymore, and I really think he'll come through and do a good job. I just have this feeling that Texas A&M, they've lost a close ball game. Texas is probably a little better football team, but I still think Texas A&M will find a way to win this football game.
Yeah, I do feel that if A&M does win it, Coach, it is a lower scoring game under the 48.5. I think if you're Texas and Steve Sarkisian, you feel you have the more experienced quarterback in terms of this type of situation. They're playing in the college football playoff last year with Quinn Ewers. Granted, they've played down to the level of competition, but battle-tested in big games. You would have to give the edge to Ewers over Marcel Reed. What would this say for Mike Elko in year number one if he was able to make it to the SEC championship? Because the preseason win total and expectation was 8.5, right? They did have one of the better odds to potentially win an SEC championship. Jimbo Fisher couldn't do that in multiple years. If he was able to do that in year number one, I mean, the stage is set for potentially 4 or 5 years of great success.
Well, you win championships with defense. He's always been an outstanding defensive coach. And I think that's what he brought to the table here. They played great defense, and then they ran the football and won their close football games. So I really think Mike Elko, he was a very, very good coach coming into the situation. It'll be an incredible year for him. And I think if he can win this football game, it will be an amazing year. So I'm looking forward to seeing it, and I think he'll pull it out.
Yeah, we'll see how that game does play out. Night kick, 7:30 under the lights in College Station. Coach, if Texas does lose, and they do have 2 losses, based off the body of work where maybe their only marquee win was against Michigan in the early part of the season, do you feel like they're an at-large team in terms of the top 12 teams in the nation if they lose on Saturday?
Yeah, you know what? They've hung around the top, and I think because they've been around the top, I don't think they'll drop out of the equation. They've still got very, very good talent on their football team, and they can really win any game they play in. So I would think with 2 losses, they'll make the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see how that game plays out. Let's turn our attention to a game you know very well, the Iron Bowl, Saturday, 3:30 in Tuscaloosa. Right now, Tuscaloosa, Alabama opens as a clear favorite, 11.5 over the Auburn Tigers. Alabama won this ball game last year on the Plains in dynamic fashion, converting the 4th and goal from the 31-yard line. Isaiah Bond is no longer on the team, but Jalen Milroe is. How do you see this game playing out, and what does this series mean to you in terms of the Iron Bowl?
You know, it's a great series. I've coached in it many times and come out on top most of the time. But you look at first of all, Auburn won their big game last week. They had an incredible win in overtime. Alabama took an incredible loss at home. And I just think the dynamic of that, Alabama keyed up, having lost that football game. They'll win this football game. But this is a great football game. If you can stop Jason Milroe, I mean, Alabama doesn't have much else after that. And that's the key. But I do think they'll play a good game and come out with a victory.
Yeah, you look at Auburn right now from a defensive perspective, Coach, only allowing 20.7 points per game. Their defense is very solid in terms of run support. They can run sideline to sideline. But how important is it for Hugh Freeze to get to 6 wins and, more importantly, knock off their arch rival, Alabama, and really put the nail in the coffin for the Alabama Crimson Hope's playoffs odds this year?
You know, it's big. I mean, I remember when I was at Auburn, and I had a saying that you could be 10-0 and have saved your career, but you haven't saved your job yet because you haven't played Alabama till the very end. This is a big game. This is a big game for him. It's a big game for Auburn, and it'll have an impact on his offseason if he does not win this game. He's not going to lose his job, but I guarantee it'll be a much more iffy position if he does not win this game.
Now, Auburn only allowing 110 rushing yards to opposing offenses, 2.9 yards per carry. What can Auburn do from an offensive perspective based off the performance last week in terms of Norman, where Alabama only scored 3 points? You got to believe that they start fast, put the ball in terms of Milroe's hands, and more importantly, Ryan Williams, that was contained by that Oklahoma defense. Can Auburn score 30 in your opinion?
I don't know if they can score 30. I think they will mix it up. They'll mix the passing game in early. Don't think they'll score 30, but I think they'll stay in this football game.
All right, when Coach and I return, more SEC action coming right back. Keep it where it is.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards.
That was
Lincoln! But he had that
won the
program
Big 12 every year!
Only on SportsGrid.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Fillet Indiana. They would smash them.
What?
Honestly.
You listen to yourself speak. That's not a reality question. They have not played each other. You are using hypothetical.
Team, and they got embarrassed.
So many
if
teams
they would
do.
have won that football, yes, that's you're
but that's the thing, guys.
correct.
No.
The
Stop.
only
Please, stop.
the only
Let me
argument
speak.
is Indiana is a decent football team and a product of their environment.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
He shouldn't need to hire outside help at this point to be able to help him, let alone outside help, Joe, that used to work for him.
Until they get him out of the way, I just don't see how this gets any better. And like you said, who are you picking from? Because most people who know the league want nothing to do with the ownership group there with the Jets.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Back on the Bowden Blitz, diving into Week 14 action, we'll turn our attention to the battle in Nashville, where Tennessee opens as a 10.5-point road favorite over Diego Pavia and the Vanderbilt Commodores. Vanderbilt last week dropped a 24-17 matchup in Baton Rouge against LSU. They did cover as a 7.5-point road underdog. Now they're catching 10.5. Coach, Tennessee has won 5 straight in the series. They've dominated Vanderbilt, winning those games by an average margin of victory of 29.4 points per game. A lot of pressure on Tennessee to not just cover, but win the game outright to just move on to the college football playoff.
Yeah, but this is a different Vanderbilt team. The head coach has brought in a new style of play. They are a very tough football team. I can see them very well. If Tennessee does not hit the deep ball, does not get that back in their game plan, I can see Vanderbilt very well playing this game down the wire. I don't see them winning this football game, but I can see them playing it right down the wire by keeping Tennessee's offense off the field, by moving the football, sustaining drives, and keeping the Tennessee for a chance to score them.
See, now when you look at Vanderbilt in 2 games that stand out, in my opinion, 2 games with more explosive offenses last week against LSU, and you could take into account the Texas game where they were catching 21.5 in Nashville against the Longhorns. If they're able to run the football, bleed the clock, that offense in terms of right now, Tennessee will have limited possessions to potentially, cover that 10.5-point line. And then all of a sudden they shorten the game, much like a triple option, and then you're on upset alert. So the longer that this game plays out, where it's a 1-score game, Tennessee potentially could be a little bit tight, and then that'll put pressure on Nico and the passing attack. So is that the recipe for Vanderbilt? Start fast, bleed the clock in terms of time of possession?
Absolutely. I mean, Tennessee has shown an inability to hit the deep ball. So they are a team that plays great defense and likes to control the football and run the football. So I really think if they can if Vanderbilt can keep them from hitting a deep ball, they can keep this game close. And when you stay close, it becomes very nervous for the favored team. And I can see this one getting down to the wire.
Yeah, you look at Vanderbilt last week only rushing for 122 yards on the ground against LSU. They did average 5 yards per carry, but you're talking about one of the most run-heavy, dominant offenses in all of college football in terms of Tennessee, averaging well over 200 yards a game, and more importantly, well over 4.5 yards per carry. Dylan Sampson and the rushing attack have been dominating every team down the stretch. Coach, Dylan Sampson and those running backs for Tennessee, they have the ability to put fresh legs in the ball game at each and every moment, and that offensive line is big and physical. Do you see Tennessee taking the same approach, run the football, trying to wear down the Vanderbilt front seven, and then working off a play action with Nico? Or do you feel like they take some deep shots first to open up the rushing attack?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think they understand they've got to run the football. They've got to dominate the line of scrimmage. Now, they will take shots. Whether they take them on the first play or on the third play, they still need to take their shots because that spreads the defense out. But I think they will dominate in the running game. If they're going to win this football game, they've got to do it like they've done it the rest of the season. They've got to run the football and score points on the line of scrimmage.
Early kick in Nashville, Tennessee, a 10.5-point road favorite. Coach does feel Vanderbilt will keep it close in terms of this matchup. Break up the presses, Coach. Florida State got a victory. It wasn't against an FBS opponent, but it was against an FCS opponent. But they do have now 2 wins in terms of the regular season. They meet their arch rival, the Florida Gators, this coming weekend in Tallahassee. 14.5-point underdog to Billy Napier and the crew. Is there any way Florida State can keep this game close?
Well, I hope they can, but I don't think they can. Florida is kind of a team on the roll. They've kind of responded to Legway, their head coach, a team that's had big upsets. I think Florida is playing really great football. If they would have had this quarterback set at the beginning of the season, they could have been a real factor in the SEC. So I think right now, when you look at what Florida's all about, their quarterback, their team confidence, I don't see Florida State in the same light. They don't have that confidence. They don't have a quarterback that they believe in. And I think they just kind of get through the season.
I'm going to shock you. Florida wins, but Florida State covers the 14.5 points. And I do feel we get through that 45.5-point total. For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next week. Conference championships are on the line right here on the Bowden Blitz. Have a great weekend.